2025 regular season of Super Rugby is done. I feel like it's been a pretty high quality viewing spectacle for us, the fans, but how are the off-field numbers looking? Do they reflect the quality of the games? Let's have a look at the numbers in terms of the bums on the seats, the viewers watching at home, and a bit on YouTube as well. And you guys can let us know your thoughts on how Super Rugby has gone in this 2025 season. So they have released some of the numbers, getting clear and exact data on things like attendance and ratings and whatnot for Super Rugby for a number of years now has been like trying to find the lost city of Atlantis. You just can look and get little clues here and there, but you can't really get the kind of full picture. Last year, the clubs in New Zealand did at least release the kind of total season numbers in terms of their attendances, if not a game-by-game breakdown. So we do have some data. The data they released about the attendance is to say that it is up 6% on last year total, which may not seem that impressive. Like 6% could just be if you had 6% sunnier days, you get more fans out there. But that also needs to take into account the fact that because the Rebels are now gone, we had 7 fewer games to be played. So despite fewer games in the regular season, they still managed to get more bums on seats. So it's a pretty loose figure, but the estimate I would give it is around about 14,000. Some of the teams tend to get bigger crowds. The Blues, certainly at the start of the season before it went to custard, would have been getting at least 20,000 to some games. Other teams like the Force and the Brumbies tend to have lower turnouts, often less than 10,000. Teams like the Reds tend to pull in 20 at some times. And other teams have regularly been getting numbers above 14,000 this year. So between the highs and the lows, around about 14,000 is my kind of guess at it based on the increase we've got with the fewer games we've got and what attendance data we do have available, because we had more complete data from last year. Last year's average, I think, was in the 12s. So fewer games and up 6% means around about 14. It could be more, it could be less. I think that would put it slightly above the likes of the URC. The URC likewise has some clubs that are big draws and regularly get 20,000 plus. Other teams who don't even have a stadium which can seat 10. So their numbers are probably a bit lower. It's probably a bit lower in Super Rugby than the top 14, which is really regularly getting good crowds over in France. So if it's up despite fewer games, I think that is at least one check mark in terms of people wanting to see the product on the field. Still plenty of room for improvement there. Viewership numbers are an interesting one because the numbers in New Zealand have kind of come out flat. They did mention that the digital viewers are up by like 19%, but the traditional, what do they call it? Not analog, there's another word they used for it, but the traditional old school viewers watching on actual, UHF aerials or TVs or whatever, those numbers are down. So digital is up, traditional, linear, that's the one, linear is down. So New Zealand's numbers have kind of come in flat, which is a little bit disappointing seeing as they did have an increase from 2023 through to 2024 of like 12%, but that's not been replicated in 2025. When I feel like the product on the field in 2025 is better than 2024. So that one's a little bit disappointing from a New Zealand perspective, but the Aussie numbers have had a pretty decent uptick. Stands viewership is up 27%, and then their free-to-air option on 9 is up 13%. So that kind of flies in the face of some of the New Zealand kind of, analog linear numbers being a bit down, if the Aussie numbers in some of those areas are going up. So improvement in Australia, room for improvement in New Zealand in terms of the viewership. Fiji, they also talked about Fiji. They said like at one point at its peak, a third of the country were watching one of the Drua games. So I feel like Fiji's numbers in terms of their bums on seats and their engagement with the Drua are always very good, despite the fact that Drua didn't have a very good season. So that's at least one thing that is encouraging. Now, I also wanted to check the YouTube numbers because those are one that is publicly available. And it's interesting because if you look at the YouTube numbers on the highlights packages, only on the official Super Rugby YouTube channel, there are other channels which show YouTube highlights, like Sky's channel shows highlights, and some of the teams put up highlights packages. But just on the official YouTube highlights page, where most people who wanted to watch Super Rugby highlights would go to find them, starts off surging at the start of the season with great numbers, and then it kind of levels off through rounds 5 to 12. Low point is round 13, like where we had the lowest viewed highlights package, which was the Force against Brumbies game, which, as I mentioned, is two of the kind of smaller market teams. And then things start picking up round 14, round 15. As I record this, round 16's numbers aren't as high, but it's only the Thursday after the games have been played, so those views sometimes take a couple of days to click over on YouTube, and I would imagine they will increase, before they kind of reach their limit of viewership, as they are the most recent games as I record this video. So yeah, Super Rugby had a flying start to the season. Mid-season, I feel like, is maybe where things got a little bit more predictable. Maybe that's reflected in some of the YouTube highlights views as well. But that being said, the average of this year's views still blitzes last year's. This season, the average Super Rugby highlights package is being viewed 157,000 times compared to 134 last year. Last year also had a bit of a different trend. It didn't come in quite as hot, but it did pick up a little bit of steam at different points throughout the season. I think part of that was the Crusaders just having a terrible year last year. People were often tuning in to see that kind of thing. So yeah, YouTube's numbers are up, attendance numbers are up, Aussie viewing numbers are up. It's just the New Zealand viewership, especially on the pay TV avenues, which is maybe one area of concern for Super Rugby. But that being said, on the same broadcaster, the Black Ferns numbers, women's rugby is certainly one of the big growth areas of the game. Their numbers were up astronomically. It's likely got a lower starting point, so it's easier to get them up percentage-wise, but that is very, very encouraging for more rugby engagement. But yeah, you guys let us know your thoughts on 2025. Do you think these viewing and attendance numbers match your feeling about the game? Or do you still think it has a fair way to go? They have implemented things like Super Rugby Fantasy. They've been doing different kind of rounds, culture round and whatnot, to try and spark engagement. I think the fantasy has worked reasonably well. Certainly room for improvement there too. But yes, it's good to see them at least being a bit proactive. You guys let us know your thoughts. If you enjoyed any of the data, feel free to subscribe to the channel. I'd appreciate that. And I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.